Hey everybody! I am back today with a new scrapbook process video featuring some of the newest releases from Brutus Monroe. Their storybook Forest release from April is stunning. Loads of these products are still in stock in the shop, and I will have them all listed in the description box below. Starting with some 12 by 12 white cardstock, and I'm going to start with this amazing embossing glaze. So this is a brand new product from Brutus Monroe, and what it basically is this nice liquid embossing medium, like an ink, and it is in what kind of looks like a nail polish bottle, which is fabulous because I don't have to get out my embossing ink. I don't have to try to kind of like smoosh it onto the edge of my paper. I can just take my little bottle and glaze it right over just the edge of my white cardstock, add this beautiful embossing powder, melt it up, and this is so cool. I love this embossing glaze stuff. I think it's a really, really great product for scrapbookers, especially because it allows us to have the control to easily add that embossing powder to the edges of a scrapbook page, which is one of my very favorite techniques. I love adding that embossing powder edge to my scrapbook pages, and I just think this is so cool. This stuff is like fabulous. I cannot say enough how awesome I think it is for scrapbookers. I love to emboss on 12 by 12 scrapbook pages, but it can be a little difficult. The ink pad is a little bit unwieldy and trying to get it like exactly the way you want it, but this way you have control, which I think is so cool. I am embossing all of the edges with Penny metallic embossing powder, which is this pretty coppery color. It's so cute. Look at that. Isn't that stunning? Oh, I love it. So I'm going to do all of the edges. You see here, I'm taking that embossing glaze. I did put a little scrap paper underneath my white cardstock. I was doing this at a crop, so I was not home with all of my supplies and on my own table and all that kind of stuff. So I placed a scrap paper under the cardstock, and then I could just brush this embossing glaze just along the edges. This stuff is a game changer. Like, it's so cool. I love it. So I'm going to do all of the edges around the entire 12 by 12 scrapbook paper. And then we can go ahead and get started on the next part of this background. Remember, we're working on backgrounds this month. We're doing some mixed media ones that are a little bit longer, that are a little bit more time consuming, but I also have a couple videos where I am letting the pattern paper just do the work for me, and I'm pulling together some quick layouts too. This one's just slightly more time consuming, but really not too bad. To add a little bit more color around the edge of my page, I'm going to grab some dried marigold Distress Oxide ink. This oxide ink is like a yellowy orange color, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around. I'm going to go right over all of that embossing. I am going to start with a pretty heavy hand with the ink, but I'm just going to keep blending it and blending it and blending it until it kind of blends out. So just like the middle portion of the page is going to be white. I'm starting, like I said, heavy hand around the edge here, and then coming in just with the ink that's left over on the brush to do the rest of the edges and kind of feather or blend the edges into the middle. So once I have all of the inking done and I'm liking the way that it looks, I'm going to come in with the orange microfiber cloth that is also available at Brutus Monroe, and I'm going to go around the edges. This is going to burnish the ink off of that beautiful coppery embossing that we did, and allow it to really shine through on the edges. Now we're going to work with the Sensational Spines washi sheets. So what these basically are is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of sticker paper. You get 2 sheets, and they are an amazing budget-friendly product that Brutus Monroe has. I really, really like it. I had never used their washi strips until I became part of their design team. And I have been so in love with them. I've used them for so many projects. And the new design for the April release, the washi sheets are called Sensational Spines, and they're like book spines, and they're so cool. I love them. So I'm basically going to cover almost, well, right around half, if not more than half, of the bottom of my page with the washi strips. I used more than one sheet. So I used a whole sheet plus 3 or 4 extra. I'm butting the books up against each other, and I'm just folding under the edges. Now, does that mean that I could have not embossed or done the ink blending on the bottom half of my page? Yes, it does. And if I had a more absolute idea of what I was going to do, I probably would have done that, but I wasn't 100% sure if I was gonna like this, or if I was going to get like a third of the way in and be like, no, let's stop now and add our photos. I wasn't sure where I was gonna have my photos, those kinds of things. In the end, though, I really could have just done the top half of the page. I love how these looked, though. They looked so good and so rich and pretty that I needed to go all the way across my background. Another really great product from April was the 6x6 vintage plaid papers. I love this paper pad. I think it is super versatile, and lots of nice like tone-on-tone patterns that work really well for scrapbook pages. Sometimes the paper pads can be like you're gonna cover a lot of it, and it's not necessarily like those tone-on-tone patterns. It's things you want to fussy cut, or those kinds of things. But this pattern paper is really nice. The photos I am using today are from my travels in October when we went to Virginia for about 10 days. We went, and we had such a nice time. One of the things that we were able to do was I was able to do some book shopping at 2 different bookshops, and one of them is called Old Dominion, and that's the one we're going to scrapbook about today. The second one I will scrapbook at a later date. But I have 3 really nice photographs, and I went to this bookstore more than once. So I think I want to say twice, maybe even 3 times. I bought a couple of books. I think I might have talked about the books I bought in a previous video. I'm not sure, but I got so John Grisham lives in Virginia, and this is this bookstore he goes into, and he signs copies of his books in the bookstore, and I was able to get a signed copy of one of his books, which made me like so excited. I am a huge John Grisham person. I have read all of his books since he released The Client in the 90s. So I was like maybe 13 or 14, and I've read every one of his books since. So I was super excited to get a signed copy of one of his books. I am using those 3 patterns I chose. I am keeping some of the scraps after I mat the photos. So I'm matting the photos, keeping some of the scraps. I'm going to cut a fishtail banner into 2 of the smaller scraps and use them as a spot to hold some of my journaling. So this is kind of my idea for my page, is that we're going to have the background, which I put underneath that glass mat, just, to keep it nice and flat and to keep it from getting anything on it. So that is pretty much going to be my page design. And I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of that middle picture to give it some lift. Next, I am going to go ahead and use my handy dandy well loved and always with me journaling stamp. I'm just going to stamp 2 little journaling blocks, cut them out, and mat them so that I have space to write all the things I just told you. I'm going to create a little area here in the bottom right of my layout, and I'm going to use some of those scraps from those 2 patterns that I used to mat my photographs with. I just cut a fishtail banner in one end, and then I can use them to kind of hold my journaling. I'm going to put my title up there above my photos, and I decide that I'm just thinking about what I want to add next. I'm going to decide I want some splatter, a little bit of splatter or color behind those areas. Since I have the penny embossing around the edges, I wanted to stick with the copper. And Brutus Monroe has a chroma mist called Copper Shimmer. That's perfect. So it's going to add a little bit more copper splatter and copper shimmer. And then because I did that inking with the Distress Oxide ink, it's actually going to kind of react with that Distress Oxide ink too. And it turned out so good. So I'm just going to go ahead, set that aside. I'm going to ink the edges of my fishtail banners using some Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. That splatter will dry like that, so fast. Even if it took a little longer for that splatter to dry, that is okay, because I'm going to go ahead and die cut my title. So my title is going to be Book Shopping. That's it. I decided that was what we were gonna call it. So I am gonna grab this kind of smaller die cut pack from my stash and that beautiful deep orangey paper and cut my title. Now it is time to pull all of these elements all together onto my layout, starting with the photos. I am gonna go ahead, pull the foam tape off the back of that middle photo and place it right in the center. And you can see here how the light really did a good job of catching, even on camera, that embossing and the splatter and how cool it looks. That turned out so good. I was so happy with that. Next, I'm going to add my die cut title. I am going to put these down with Nuvo Deluxe adhesive because we are dealing with a little bit of a mixed media background here, and I want to make sure I get these letters on nice and tight so they're not going to fall off or lift or anything like that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add all of those little fishtail banners, the area on my layout that I want to add my journaling to. And once those journaling spots are in place, I'm going to go ahead and add these flat back crystals. So these are the red shift crystals. You can grab these crystals individually at Brutus Monroe, or you can grab them in a lovely big bundle that comes with little triangle trays and everything you could want. It's such a nice bundle. It's all the different colors. I think there's like 6 or 8, and I've been loving these crystals. And they're all the same size, so you don't have to dig through and try to find like the little ones or the big ones. You can just go for it and place them all down because they're all the same size. And there is my layout all done for today. If you are looking for any of the products I've used on my project today, you can head down into the description box where you'll find a link. The links in the description box are affiliate links, which helps me to be able to continue to run my channel, bring you lots of content, all that good stuff. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.